So now that we understand the theory behind the actor class, let's start actually making one. I will escape out of PowerPoint here, and we are back in our Puggle application. And I will create a new class that I'm going to call actor. Now, the way I'm going to be making this actor class, most of the time it's going to not be used directly. More than likely, anything that's going to be in the game, whether it's a peg, whether it's a ball, whether it's an invisible wall, whether it's the bonus chute, will probably extend actor. It will be a child class of the actor. So you might find that this class actually doesn't have a whole lot to it, and I'm actually going to create a few other functions that do nothing, but are essentially there to be overridden by certain child classes. And maybe this is a good time to point out that there are lots of different ways you can make an actor class, and there are people out there who are certainly better Flash engineers than myself, who probably have completely different ways of doing it. If you would like to branch out on your own after going through these tutorials, be my guest and let me know what you did, because I'd be interested in hearing about it. But for now, we're going to do it my way, because I'm the one that has the screen capture software. So there. All right, so we're going to have our class extend event dispatcher, because at some point we may want this class or child class to dispatch an event or two. And it's going to have two variables that I'm going to make protected, because probably the child classes will want access to them. The first one is going to be the body, and that is the B2 body. And the second one I'm going to call costume, in keeping with our whole actor metaphor, and that is going to be the display object that makes up the look of this actor. Now, the constructor of this class will pass it the body to be used and the costume to be used. And the first couple things I'm going to do is I'm going to have body equal the body, and the costume equal this costume. And then I'm going to tell it to, I'm going to call a function called update my look. And this is really kind of most of the functionality in this actor class is going to be this update my look function, which is going to do something very similar to what we did in our enter frame listener back in the Puggle class. Mainly, we're going to take the display object and we're going to move it so that it matches up with the physical body. So I'm going to have costume.x equal body get position dot x, and remember we need to multiply by ratio. Here's one area where I find that keeping the ratio as a static variable over my physivals class is actually nice, because it's one less thing we have to pass in and remember in the actor class. Again, if you want to go ahead and pass in those variables, be my guest. And then we're going to set the rotation to the body's angle and multiply by 180 over pi so that we can convert from radians to degrees. And I'm going to create one more function. This will be a public function, and I'm going to call it update now. And this is actually where we're going to call update my look. You might ask, could we do this in an event listener? Could we basically listen for an enter frame on the costume display object? And yeah, I think that works too. I've done it both ways. In some ways, I like doing it this way better, because I really know when this function is being called, whereas with the event listener, I never quite know where in the process, that enter frame is actually being called. But maybe that's just because I don't understand Flash well enough. The drawback is you have to remember that for every actor you create, you need to call this update now function. And if all of what I said seems confusing, don't worry, bear with me. We'll see it in action in a moment. So with the update now function, we're going to call update my look. And then I'm going to create another function called other specific updating. Actually, no, let's call it child specific updating. And I'm going to generate this function, and I'm going to make it a protected function. And the idea is this function does nothing. But if I create any children of this actor class, this would be the place where I would want to do any game-specific logic that you'd want to check every frame. So for instance, eventually I'm going to create a ball actor class, and if there's a point where I want to say, hey, check and see if you're off screen, this is probably the best place to do it, is this child-specific updating class. So I'm just going to write a little comment to myself to remind myself why this function is blank. Basically does nothing. I expect it to be called by my children. Okay, so probably the next thing I want to do is create some type of public function called destroy. And not destory, but destroy. Now this is basically going to be the function that will remove the actor from the world. This will probably destroy the B2 body. This will probably remove the sprite from our display. And this might also be a good time to remove any event listeners that I have set up in my actor. However, I'm not going to do any of that now. Finish this later. And that's because removing actors, or I suppose more specifically removing bodies from the world, can be a little tricky. And it's probably best to have this in a lesson all on its own. So for now, I'm just going to note that I probably need to finish this destroy function, and we won't be able to destroy any actors for the time being. Now, I'm also tempted to maybe create getters, both for the body and the costume. However, I'm going to try and put that off for as long as possible. Let's see if we can kind of make our actor enough of a black box that our other classes can't see the inner workings of it. So let's review what we have so far. We've created two member variables. The body, which is a B2 body, and that's the representation of this object in the physics world. And then we also have costume, and that's a display object. And that will be the visual representation of this actor on my stage. We have a function called update now, and it's going to be my responsibility to tell every actor to update. Within this function, we're going to be doing two things. Update my look is going to move the costume to the right location on stage according to where the body is. In other words, it's going to make sure that the costume mirrors visually the behavior of the body in my B2 world. Then we're also calling this function called child-specific updating that does nothing right now, but will probably be where we can keep some game logic that various child actors will use. That is, children of the actor class, not, like Dakota Fanning. And then I created this public destroy function, which we will actually deal with a little later. And I think that's about all we need to do. If I was concerned with saving some processor time, there's one thing I could probably do in my update now function. I could take a look at the body, and if it's static, if I know that it will not be moving no matter what, I don't have to go through this update my look step. And so I can do that by, the body has a function called isStatic. This is basically a Boolean function that tells me whether the body is static or not. And so I would guess I will say if the body is not static, then we can update my look. So there's a bit of a trade-off here. This probably does save some processing time. The drawback is that I'm sure one day I'm going to have a static actor and I'm going to manually move the B2 body, and then I'm going to be incredibly confused as to why the sprite that represents that B2 body hasn't moved to the right location. And it's going to be because I've forgotten that I have this if statement in here. So, on the one hand, saving a little bit of time. On the other hand, probably going to be kicking myself later for adding this in. So I'll let you make the call. And so now that we're finished with this, let's start to move our ball that we've created into this class. So let's see here. Normally I would not be creating an actor class by itself. Like I said, most of the time you'll probably be creating a class that extends actor. I would probably create something called a ball actor, and that would be what would extend actor. But for the purposes of demonstration and to show some nice little tiny steps, let's actually make an actor class. So I'm going to create a ball actor. That's going to be an actor. And here we've called the function makeBall. Since we've created the sprite and the body, I can easily create my new ball actor class. I'm going to pass to it the ball body. I'm going to pass to it the ball sprite. And then in my new frame listener, I can actually delete this stuff and just say ball actor update now. And now if I hit F6 in Flash Develop and run it, I will probably, oh, there we go. So it looks exactly the same as before, because we really haven't done anything too different, but we've made the important step of slowly turning this ball into its own object in the world. We will finish the rest of that step by creating the ball actor class, and we'll be doing that next.